Hello there, I'm Sarah Maud, and I'm here today to talk about sleep. Now, we have World Sleep Day coming up on March the 17th, and World Sleep Day was developed to help raise awareness of the different types of sleep disorders that people experience and the potential solutions that are available for them. So sleep disorders such as insomnia or restless leg syndrome or sleep apnea. But regardless of whether you have a sleep disorder or not, there are vast numbers of people that are experiencing challenges with their sleep on an almost daily basis. So in this podcast, I'm going to unpack some of the things which are really compromising your ability to get a good night's sleep, and to talk you through some strategies that you can put into place straight away that help you get your sleep back on track or even improve the quality of your sleep. Now, the interesting thing about sleep is that sleep is an instinctive ability. It's a very natural ability. We all came into the world with it. We didn't need to learn how to sleep. It was there right from the get-go. So it's less about understanding how do I get to sleep and more about exploring what is it that I'm doing potentially that's taking me away from my natural ability to sleep through the night. So some of the things which can be impacting your sleep, the biggest one that I see and have seen from working with clients over the last decade who sought my help for hypnotherapy for sleep, is their brainwave state. So people that are living their life in a high range beta brainwave state. And a high range beta brainwave state is the stress response. It's your body's survival response, and it's the cause of insomnia. Now, if you're in high range beta brainwave, your body's not going to want you to sleep because it thinks that there's a potential threat to your survival. So it's going to do what it needs to do to stay awake, to stay on high alert, because it thinks that something significant is happening. And what your mind doesn't know, what your body doesn't know, is the difference between a real threat to life and you chewing something over in your mind. So you could be thinking about something that's happened during the day. You could be ruminating about something that's happened this week. You could be thinking about something you've got to deal with, you've got going on in your diary tomorrow. You could be thinking about any number of things. You know, you might be going through some challenges with your kids, with your partner, with your family, things that are happening at work, things that are happening within you, yourself, with your health, any number of subjects. But the minute, it doesn't matter what the subject is, the minute that you start thinking about something, and your mind, by the way, it loves to think. It thinks it's being really helpful in thinking about things. But when you're about to try and go to sleep, all it's going to do is keep you awake. And you know what that feels like, don't you? When you just can't seem to stop thinking about something. You can't seem to switch off and your mind's jumping around all over the place. Well, when we're in that stress response, when we're thinking these thoughts that have kicked off that survival response and the brainwave goes into high range beta, we are flooding the body with cortisol, with adrenaline, with noradrenaline. You've got the amygdala, which is part of the survival response. It's like a emergency response that's priming your body. So everything that is brilliant if our life was actually in danger, but is the opposite of what it is that we want to experience if we're trying to go to sleep. So living our life in that stress response. And the challenge that we have with stress is that so many people are now so accustomed to living in the stress response that they don't even realize that they're in the stress response. You know, the amount of clients that I've seen over the years that acknowledge that when they're in bed, they're so tense that when they start to listen to my hypnosis recordings, they're amazed at how much tension they've been carrying. They didn't even realize that, their shoulders were virtually up around their ears until they started to listen to those hypnosis recordings that got them to scan the body, to notice where they were kind of clenching their jaw, clenching the teeth, but holding all this stress and tension in the body. So stress, living in that high range beta brainwave, is absolutely going to impact sleep, as are our diets. Everything that we put into our body is going to correlate to the quality of our sleep. And I'm sure that we've probably all experienced, maybe if you've eaten something quite late at night, or you've eaten something that's very rich, you've had something that's quite heavy. I know there's times that maybe I've eaten, like say, a curry, and I've had a couple of beers, and then I've had a terrible night's sleep and thought, I really wish that I hadn't done that. So whatever it is that we're eating, if we're eating very rich, heavy food late at night, then we're going to get a spike in our blood sugar levels at a time that we really don't want a spike in our blood sugar levels. If we're eating a diet that's very processed, that's got a lot of sugar in it, sugar creates inflammation, and that affects your gut function. And your gut function is where we produce about 90% of serotonin. And it's worth knowing that 90% of that serotonin is actually produced during the deep stages of sleep. It's one of the big factors in depression, that where people have overstimulated, very busy minds, they will have to spend longer in dream sleep to process all of those thoughts, those feelings, everything that they've got going on in their mind. Because everything that we have going on in our mind, we have to process. The brain has to process it. So even things that you're scrolling through on social media before you go to sleep, anything that you're watching on television, anything that you're surfing the internet for, everything has to be processed through the brain. So when we've got an awful lot of things that we're exposing ourselves to in terms of stimulation, and then you've got very busy ruminating minds, we will spend up to 4 times longer in dream sleep, in REM sleep, rapid eye movement. Now, dream sleep is paradoxical in that we're not really asleep. We just produce a hormone that stops us from carrying out our dreams. But we're as conscious as you are right now listening to this. And so if we're not getting the deep restorative sleep, that's where the body's doing its rest, it's doing its housekeeping, it's topping up, it's replenishing, it's alkalizing the body, it's doing any number of thousands of processes. And we all know what it's like, don't we, when we've not had a good night's sleep and you wake up and you're tired, then it becomes harder to manage your thoughts. It becomes harder to manage your emotional responses. And when we're tired, we're more likely to just slip into our default thought processes, those default thought structures. We're more likely to sort of snap somebody's head off, get grumpy, get irritable, lose our temper. We're more likely to make assumptions, jump to conclusions, any number of things which aren't really going to serve us because we're tired, we're fatigued, so we're not really at our optimal best. So being very conscious of what we're putting into our body, and I'm sure that you've probably heard much of this type of advice about what we're putting into our body. You know, if we're drinking caffeine quite late into the day, caffeine stays in the body for about 12 hours. Alcohol, a lot of people think that alcohol relaxes them. But if we drink alcohol, it is going to potentially compromise us because the liver is at its most active between 2 and 4 in the morning. So whilst you might find yourself getting off to sleep quicker when you've had an alcoholic drink, you are more likely to wake up during the night and then struggle to be able to get back to sleep because your liver's in full action mode, processing all of that additional sugar and toxicity in the body. And then we have other factors that can impact sleep, such as menopause, perimenopause, hormones. When we're ill, we're not very well. I know myself, if I've got a cough or a cold and I've got a head cold, the thing that I'm crying out for is sleep, but it's the one thing that sort of seems very, very hard to access because we're just so bunged up. Our sleep stories. Now, I find this really interesting when I've been working with clients, is to find out what their sleep story is. And by that, I mean, what is it that they are telling themselves about their ability to sleep? And if it's something which often people will struggle for a really long time before getting help, so they've created some quite habitual and conditioned thought patterns about sleep, about their ability to get to sleep, which is kind of a bit like hypnotizing yourself. You're hypnotizing yourself about what to expect. So if you've created a belief that, I just can't seem to switch off, I can't sleep, I always wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, then your body's like, it's responding to these sleep stories. Another thing which I've observed with clients is the fear of not getting enough sleep. And I see this when people are clock watching. So they become very heightened, they become very aware of what time it is, and they sort of almost create quite an anchored response to the time. So it's like, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, then it's 1:30, then it's 2, and then it's 2:30, and the closer that the clock edges to the time that they have to get up, the more stressed that they're becoming because they're thinking, I'm just not going to get enough sleep, I'm not going to be able to get to sleep, I've got a big day. All of that just creates additional stress at a time that we're trying to relax. Worry, any kind of worry, as I say to clients, worry gives us nothing, but it takes everything away from you. And again, the mind likes to think that if it's thinking about something, it's helping you in some way. We can fool ourselves into believing that if we are worrying about something, we're doing something about the situation, we're doing something about the problem. But worrying won't change anything that we've got going on. It's just going to eat in to our ability to be at our optimum best. It's just going to compromise our peace of mind, our ability to be calm and face the situation. And again, if somebody has spent most of their life worrying, if they believe that they are a natural born worrier, that worrying is part of their personality, they'll have created very conditioned habitual thought processes and patterns around that. Now, something which I can't necessarily do anything about, but which is a factor, is if you're sharing a bed with somebody who snores, somebody that's got sleep apnea, somebody that's got restless legs, somebody that has their own sleep challenges. It can be difficult to get to sleep next to somebody like that, and couples can find it quite damaging for their relationship because they can't share a bed together. So that can certainly be an impact. If you're a shift worker and you have different shifts that are interchangeable, maybe 1 week you're on day shifts, 1 week you're on night shifts, your body's having to adapt. I've certainly seen many medical practitioners over the years that have really struggled with their sleep because they've worked, usually in the medical profession, I find that people have worked 12-hour shifts, so they've maybe worked through the night and they've worked in quite high pressure environments. You know, doctors that work in A&E, that they've working in a high dependency intensive care unit, and they're exhausted at the end of it, but their body's still very hardwired. So they really struggle with calming everything down, calming down the central nervous system. And they know that they've got to go back and repeat the process. They've got to do it all again the following night, or that night rather. And so sleep becomes something that they spend quite a lot of time sort of worrying about and fretting about. And the more that we do that, the more that we're just going to create additional problems. But shift working, definitely something I've seen impact people's sleep. The sleep environment, you know, if a room isn't dark enough, if it's too warm, if it's too cold, you know, people have got different, some people like to sleep with a window open. Some people don't mind if it's a little bit warmer. Everybody's maybe slightly different, but if the environment isn't conducive to what we need, then again we can struggle to sleep. And then we have factors such as trauma and post-traumatic stress. So where we've experienced incidents during our life and the memories of those incidents haven't been processed through the brain properly. And where we've got something that hasn't processed through the brain, we might experience repetitive dreams. We might experience real struggles with our sleep, because effectively if we have got PTS, then we're in a state of emergency alert. We're on high emergency alert, and that's going to impact our sleep. And you might have some people that are aware that they are holding on to trauma, have got PTS, and you've got a lot of people out there that really aren't aware that they are experiencing trauma. So again, it's usually one of the first places that I look when I am working with clients, is to understand if there is potentially any post-traumatic stress there. And if there is, rest assured that you can process post-traumatic stress very easily and effectively. In fact, one of the areas that I love working with is trauma, because we don't need to talk about the trauma in order to process it. In fact, we can say very little about what's actually happened. And using powerful modalities such as hypnosis, hypnotherapy, emotional freedom technique, tapping as it's also referred to, we can process the trauma. And I've had so many clients over the years that their sleep has improved dramatically because traumas have been processed that they just didn't even recognize that they were experiencing at a conscious level. Okay, so I trust that that has given you some insights into the kind of aspects that can impact sleep. So now that you've got a greater level of awareness, what are some of the solutions? What are some of the quick wins that you can put into place straight away? Well, as I talked about at the very beginning, is really climbing off emergency alert and listening to guided meditations, listening to the hypnosis recordings like the ones that you'll find in the Sleep Toolkit, of which you can access the link in the podcast, and helping to really calm down your mind, calm down that central nervous system, preparing the mind and the body to be able to know that it's safe to go to sleep is absolutely up there as a sleep strategy. If you are somebody that is aware that you've experienced trauma, that you have post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder, as it's also called, then absolutely I would say working with the professional services of a hypnotherapist, emotional freedom technique specialist, somebody that's often trained in lots of different modalities like NLP. You can often find practitioners like me that are trained in a whole bunch of different modalities. So people like me can take a very holistic approach to processing trauma quickly and effectively for you. Definitely looking at your diet. What is it that you're eating? When are you eating it? What are you putting into your body? If you need to seek the services of a nutritionist, then I absolutely recommend you do that. It will be money well spent in order to get that return on investment of a great, consistent, quality night's sleep. Looking at your room, your environment. Is it too warm? Is it too cold? Is it dark enough? All the kind of things that you intuitively know that you need to get really good quality sleep. Do you need to start getting yourself to bed earlier? You know, a lot of people, they know what it is that they need to achieve good quality sleep. They're just not doing it. So sometimes we need to be disciplined with ourselves, myself included. You know, when I start to watch drama or something on Netflix, I can be as guilty as the next person at thinking, I'll just watch one episode, I'll just watch one more episode. But I know if I do, it's going to compromise my sleep, and it's certainly going to give my brain a lot more than it needs to process if I'm watching some kind of crime drama on television. So perhaps some of this is about us being disciplined and making that promise to ourselves about all the things that we can do that is within your locus of control to start getting much better quality sleep, and thinking about, well, what is that return on investment? You know, if you can get your sleep back up to a level that you're not just functioning, but you're in optimal flow, what will that do for you? What will the payback be? And that can be your reminder that, yes, I am going to stop watching television and I'm going to get myself off to bed. It might be that you can do some stretching before bed, you can do some light yoga before bed. There are any number of things that you can do holistically that will improve the quality and consistency of your sleep. But I would love to know how this lands for you. Maybe you've got some top tips that you can share with us that really work for you. So drop your comments into the comments box, jump onto the link and download your own sleep toolkit where you will find powerful sleep tools for the same price as a cup of coffee. Everything to gain there for you. So thank you for joining us, and I look forward to sharing insights and wisdom again with you very soon. But for now, sweet dreams.